Good morning, everyone. This is Tony Kahn. I am the Title I coordinator for Wayne County Schools and also Parent Community Liaison coordinator for Wayne County Schools. And welcome to our third annual Wayne County Parent Academy. We're going to do some different presentations this morning. I think this information will be great and beneficial for everyone. So, hope that you enjoy the day. But we are going to start the day off with Katrina Jefferson. She is the owner of the Peachtree Center for Wellness. She is a registered play therapy supervisor and a certified trauma therapist. And we're going to start the presentation this morning with her. She's going to be talking about understanding and coping with trauma. So I will turn it over to her at this time and hope you enjoy the day.
Hello, everyone. Good morning. I hope everyone is coping with our current circumstances. Well, and you know what it's like. We all have good coping strategies and difficult and maybe challenging coping strategies. So I just wanted to take a moment and see what I could do to help the parents and teachers and kids that are all, really struggling with where we are at. We've just learned that our school schedules are all changing, everything is changing, and really for the last, oh my goodness, the last month and a half, everything has changed for us. So, this is an opportunity to kind of look at what is trauma because the reality of it is we have all experienced a great amount of trauma related to what we're doing, what the COVID virus, how it's changed our lives, how we are trying to cope with it. Our lives have become very different. So now we've got to try and maybe learn. This is an attempt to learn about trauma. How does it affect us? And how can we cope with it? What are some things that we can do? So a big part of my presentation is really all about understanding trauma, how it affects our brains, how it affects our bodies, and actually what we can do with that. And then what the second half of the presentation is going to be really focused on a lot of techniques that have been useful and to work with our mind, body, and spirits throughout these processes. This process of just trying to get acclimated to our lives now. Everything is different. Everything has changed. So let's kind of talk about. I'm going to talk about why it's been so difficult, why we feel so fatigued, why we are having so many of the difficulty transitions trying to deal with this process. So, I am okay. Uh, well, here we are having some technical difficulties. I may have to come back and share a different screen because I am, it wasn't advancing for me the way I needed to for it to advance. Let's try this again. Let's see. Oh, there we go. Now it's advancing. See how this stuff works? We have to learn how to be on our toes and our feet and be able to actually kind of roll with the changes. So, these are things that, we see frequently when we are having some troubles with children, behaviors, even ourselves. I have been having trouble with my temper. I'm much more irritable lately, and I seem to be a lot more emotional, argumentative, disregards the rules, like things that we would normally always follow, easily annoyed, and deliberately annoying to other people, blaming others for mistakes or wrongdoing, resentful and spiteful behaviors, and decreased cognitive abilities as well. Um, I'm thinking, okay, so let me go back to this present mode. I'm sorry I have to keep changing that, but there's something at the bottom of my screen and I don't know if you're seeing it or not. So I didn't want it to, interrupt what you could see. Social isolation and withdrawal, easily startled, I mean, I find myself very easily startled with things that are going on around me. What's going on? What's now? What's next? Aren't we also easily startled by a lot of the news reports that we're hearing that seem to be changing, from day to day, and we're always watching the numbers. So then that causes mood swings and tremendous fatigue and exhaustion. We are feeling this, our kids are feeling this edginess and hypervigilance, vague complaints of aches and pains throughout the body, lack of interest in previously enjoyable activities. So many of us are actually feeling many of these things. So, what is trauma? Trauma is when we have encountered an out of control or frightening experience that disconnected us from all sense of resourcefulness or safety or coping or love, because we don't perceive that we have those things around us when we experience trauma, because we feel out of control and frightened. A traumatic event can involve a single experience or enduring repeated events completely overwhelm the individual's inability or ability to cope or integrate the ideas and emotions involved in that experience. Traumatizing events can take a serious toll on those involved, even if the event did not cause physical damage. It can be even very difficult. Just look at what we're going through. Many of us are not having physical damage from the pandemic, but we all are suffering in many ways because of the mental health and the emotional damage that it creates. This can have a profound impact on the individual's identity, resulting in negative effects in the mind, body, soul, and spirit. Components of trauma. Regardless of its source, trauma contains three elements. It was unexpected, the person was unprepared, and there was nothing the person could do to stop it from happening. Wow. Doesn't that completely describe where we are now, much less where children have been because of experiences that they had even before the pandemic, or us? Before the pandemic, we all had lives primarily that, we were functioning pretty normally. And now everything's been turned upside down. And those who have had trauma also will experience an increase in symptoms because they'll be triggered by the problems that are caused by this pandemic and all the changes that we've had to make. Everything feels out of control, everything feels unexpected. We were completely unprepared. There was nothing, and we couldn't stop that. But we now know one good thing is we all know precautions that we can do to keep ourselves and our children and our families safe. So we've got to make sure we follow those precautions. Simply put, traumatic events are beyond our control. It is an event that determines, it is not the event that whether determines whether it is traumatic to someone or not. It's our experience, our perception of the event that the meaning is derived from. So basically, it's not necessarily like we all have had to experience this pandemic in our own way. So my perception of it may be very different than yours or someone else's. So everybody's perception of it is different. And you've probably noticed that everybody is reacting to it differently. That is because perceptions are different. And so, therefore, we just need to be able to understand and allow everybody their own experience of that and help them through it. So, what causes trauma? Normal biological function is partly determined by the environment. So, look at what we are looking at now with the environment. Our environment has been compromised. And so that causes trauma. Adverse childhood experiences and adverse community environments those are words to describe something that they are studying. They've been studying adverse childhood experiences for over 20 years. And what they're seeing is that neglectful environments, abusive environments when children are young, and traumatic environments. Okay, so not just neglect and abuse, but there are a list of things that I'm going to show you that are part of that environmental assessment. What's in the environment? It can be the loss of a parent, the absence of a parent. It can be domestic violence in the environment. There's several different things that the ACEs have studied, and they have also determined that adverse community environments, because we all know before the pandemic arrived, we were dealing with the opioid epidemic, which we still are. We're just hearing a lot less about it. But the opioid epidemic was also, and so is the pandemic, an adverse community environment that our children have to deal with and that we have to deal with. So, what we've learned is these types of situations can actually impact their development, our development. If we experienced that when we were young, it actually can impact the way the child responds to threats, fears, or what they perceive as a threat or a fear. So, as you see, an absence of mental stimulation in a neglectful environment may limit the brain from developing it to its full potential. Then, so the opposite, neglectful environments, not enough stimulation. The opposite, stress in an environment, can impair the development of the brain and the nervous system. So when a child grows up afraid or under constant or extreme stress, the immune system and the body's response systems may not develop normally. Later on, when the child or the adult is exposed to levels of stress, these systems may automatically respond as if the individual is under extreme stress. So we've all seen, people kind of being okay, and then all of a sudden, something happens, something unexpected, and now, they're overreacting. And or children, those Walmart moments when the kids are overreacting, they're triggered by something, and they're overreacting. So that's what that's talking about. Now, what are ACEs? Adverse childhood experiences. Before the age of 18, which can lead to long term health problems. That's one of the things that they have uncovered in studying these adverse childhood experiences. So you see the chart over here, and it identifies in picture form what are the different types of adverse childhood experiences that they're studying. You see abuse, physical, emotional, and sexual abuse. So, this is important to understand because emotional abuse has been often overlooked because we often see the physical abuse. We can see the bruises, we can see the problem. Emotional abuse is very difficult sometimes to detect because it's unseen as often as it happens. And one thing I have learned, though, prior to physical abuse, always, 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 there is emotional abuse and emotional neglect prior to physical abuse. So the sad part is there's always usually there's this underlying physical and emotional neglect that occurs as well before you ever see the physical abuse. So, and clearly sexual abuse. These are things that are repeated traumas to a person that has happened in their environment. So, and then you see in the household environment, mental illness. That could be a parent with depression, anxiety, because those things affect how a family member feels. So the mother treated violently, and or divorce. That seeing the mother treated violently causes trauma or divorce. So if you and substance abuse. So if any of these you see, there's several different of them. If you see these in alcoholism and that kind of thing, if you see these in a home and they are experienced in a home, then these actually can lead to some trauma that the brain has difficulty processing and then leads to patterns of behavior that you see with children and others that may be difficult to manage. So, how does trauma impact the body? Children with complex trauma histories may develop chronic or recurrent physical complaints such as headaches or stomach aches. I bet many of you have had phone calls from school. My headache hurts, my head hurts, my stomach hurts. And it's true. And so think about it. Trauma is not some cataclysmic event necessarily. Trauma can be a daily way of life. So then, if you see chronic headaches and stomach aches, there could be some upset, something going on. Complexly traumatized youth frequently suffer from body dysregulation, meaning they over respond or under respond. So we've often seen, the over response. You're asking for something that you think is very small, or you're just talking to them, and then all of a sudden they're in a meltdown or upset or angry, aggressive. They're mad, they're ready to fight. So that's part of the brain's response, fight, flight, freeze, to a threat, a perceived threat. So you could be asking a very innocent question or telling them to do something very simple. And all of a sudden they are over responding because they may perceive it as a threat. And it's not because you're threatening them, it's because of how their brain is reacting. So I'll show you a little bit more about that. And the under response. We also know about the under response, the blank look, kind of like when you're talking to them and you get a blank look, or they're not really paying attention at all. So that is often. So look at this. This is what I was talking about with the brain. And so you can see on the left side is a healthy brain. Okay, so we got to talk about the connections in the brain, because when children have been through difficulty, or our brains, anybody, children, adults, ultimately it's about the brain development. But if an infant or a child has been through neglect, or abuse, then parts of their brain are more developed than if a child has not been through neglect or abuse. A healthy brain is on the left side. Now, what you notice in the healthy brain is the connections that are circled up there on that one side. And you see on the top of the brain, those connections are highly lit up with red, and they're connected. You can actually see the connections between those red parts. They're connected by green parts, and it's all connected there in the circles. There on the other side, you see no connections. You see no connections. Now, the reason this is significant is a healthy brain. What you see in the connections on the one that is highly connected, that those are connections to executive functioning. Those are connections to the top part of the brain that actually is the one that learns the math, that learns the reading, that learns how to walk, that learns. This is the learning part of the brain. This is the part that actually, we call it the wizard, because it makes a lot of decisions and it's able to think about things and problem solve. But the other side of the brain, the other side, the other picture, if you notice, does not have those connections. So that child is going to have way more difficulty in school, in any kind of situation, social situations, in being able to manage anything, because you see those connections that normally would be there on the other side of the picture that's on the other side. Those connections aren't there. So if those connections aren't there, they have to be built. They have to be developed. But I do want you to notice the one that has the brain on the right side. I keep saying one side because I just am not sure if you're seeing the same, if it's inverted or not. But the brain that has the circles, that the fewer, less connection, no connection there. I want you to drop down and see what is highly connected down at the bottom of the picture, where it says it's the back of the brain. That one that looks like a big X, then the bottom of it has, it's very red. And notice there those connections, it is connected down at the bottom. Well, that is the survival part of our brain. That is the old mammalian brain, the old reptilian brain, and we call it the lizard brain because it is meant to keep you safe. It leads you into fight, flight, or freeze. That one is highly connected for that brain that's been through trauma. So notice, so if you've been through trauma, then what it does, your brain does, is it teaches you how to handle the trauma out of fight, flight, freeze. It leads you into fight, flight, freeze every time. So if it does that, then what would the automatic response be to a question that might be considered a threatening question? It may be, oh my gosh, you're asking me something I don't know. I feel threatened, so I'm going to be mad at you. No, I am mad. Just an example of how a child may respond, or in a meltdown. I don't know what you're asking. So ultimately, this is so important to understand because it's not because they are intentionally trying to create anger in us or frustration. It's really because the connections in the brain, and they are using the connections that have been highly used. So those that have been through trauma, the brain that has the few connections up into the executive lobe, those, and highly connected at the bottom, those are automatically going to be used as a response. And then so they have less opportunity to really respond to us. So that's why the brain cannot learn or problem solve in the presence of fear or threat. Unpredictable stress leads to increased sensitization of trauma symptoms, and emotional development ceases at the point of traumatic stress. Emotional thought, behavioral reaction patterns will be repeated from that emotional developmental stage. So you could have an 11-year-old child, and if they are threatened by something, or they don't know an answer, or they're even in a position where they may feel panic, they don't know what to do, and they may suddenly begin melting down like a 2-year-old because they may have gone through something at the age of 2, and they are stuck at that age as far as how they emotionally react to situations. So here's, thank goodness. I know that's all doom and gloom, but the good news is the brain wants to learn and heal. We all know that. We all, because guess what? This old dog, I'm 55 years old, and I am not used to doing things like webinars and telehealth. But you know what? This old dog is learning new tricks. We actually can learn how to deal with things. So if we can learn how to deal with trauma and things that trigger us, then children ages 6 to 17 years old who have had two or more ACEs that we were just talking about. And mind you, think about it now. Every child in the world that has experienced the pandemic has now had at least one ACE, which is really something. So, all children aged 6 to 17 who have had two or more ACEs and learned to stay calm and in control when faced with challenges were 3 times more likely to be engaged in school compared to peers who have had not learned those skills. So that means we need to try and help our children learn how to deal with trauma, because clearly a lot of it is very much unexpected, unexplained, and like this, out of our control. So we got to shift. I have a car that has a gear shift. I really enjoy my standard because it's fun to drive. But it's also time to shift. We got to shift our thinking. We have to shift from trauma reactions showing up as behaviors. Trauma reactions are behaviors that we see that look like fight, flight, freeze. And so that's that kid that's arguing with you, and that's that defiance often, or the one that is withdrawn and not, in getting involved. That's the flight, and or the freeze, which may be, just like a lack of action. So behaviors equal dysregulation, which equals disconnection. So if you're seeing behaviors out of kids, that means that they are dysregulated. They're disconnected. So, we got to try to help them get connected. Attention seeking behaviors. A lot of times we call that, oh, they're just attention seeking. But maybe we need to look at why. They're what that really means is they're seeking a connection. And if they are doing that with you, then that means that you are somebody that they trust. So this child is seeking a connection with someone that they think they can trust to help them get regulated. But we often get irritated with that, especially now that our levels of tolerance have decreased because we've all been around each other for so long and trying to adapt in the middle of that to new ways of doing things. So, how can we do this? We got to shift our view from consequences and punishment to, okay, behaviors that need to be responded to the brain behind the behavior, understanding that these behaviors are not really meant to aggravate us. There's really a process in the brain that's going on that's leading them to do a lot of that. So what is blocking that? And that's the thing. What is blocking the learning process? The brain. So we've got to start responding to the disconnection that is happening, not the behavior. We have to start creating some safety for that disconnection. Discipline to be used for limit setting and skill building and changing versus changing the behavior, because we would normally react to the behavior. So we've got to look at, okay, so what's going on? Is this a lizard brain? Is this a reptilian brain, one that's stuck in fight, flight, freeze? And if they are, you will not get them to hear your directions, instructions. They just won't. And that's why we all get frustrated, because we're trying to give them, just do this, this, and this. But if they cannot process it because their brain is not in executive functioning, but is in fight, flight, freeze. And I got to say, many of us are that right now in this pandemic. It has sent all of us into a trauma reactive phase in our lives. So many of us are in fight, flight, or freeze. So if they are, and if you are, they're not going to hear anything that you say because of where their brain is. And so this is it. That's the answer is safety first. We have to be able to provide safety for that lizard brain, that reptilian brain, because what's causing it to be the one to take over our brain and our bodies is that's its job. Its job is if there is a threat, it's like our soldier. It has to keep us safe. Excuse me. So if there is a threat, then it is going to pop out and take care of us. It's going to send us into fight, flight, or freeze. So the only way to calm it down is to help it to feel less threatened, and that's to create safety. So we've got to create safety, and we can do that by doing some different things. Safe and secure emotional attachment for the growth and development of a child is integral for their brain growth. So they safe and secure emotional attachment. So if you think about that, what is that? What creates safety? What creates security? And so safety is established if a child trusts that his or her needs will be met in a nurturing manner. Now, I don't mean if you've got a child that is standing there and angry that try to hug them to death. That won't work. I promise. That will not work. Nurturing does not mean comforting. Okay. Nurturing means giving them what they need when they need it. Okay. So nurturing does not mean, oh, all you need is hugs and loves and attention, everything that I cannot possibly give you right now because you have pushed me to my limits. That's not what they need. What they need is, if they need structure, then you give them structure. If they are a danger to themselves or others, and when I say that, I mean throwing a fit where they could hurt somebody, another child in the room, you, anything like that. Then, if they need structure, then that's what they need. They need to be removed so they can't be harmful to you or somebody else, or a teacher or a situation. But it is not about, just trying to comfort them. It is about understanding what they need. Is this child working out of their executive functioning, or is it fight, flight, freeze? Because if it's fight, flight, freeze, nurturing means being able to give them some safety for that. So if they're fighting, then that may mean structure. That may mean removal. That may mean, a timeout of that kind of sort. Um, or removal from people that they could hurt or themselves. I mean, they'll pick up things and do things. So, nurturing, fight, flight, freeze, means understanding what part of the brain they're working out of. What are you looking at? Is this a repetitive behavior that you've seen over and over? If it is, then probably it's out of that fight, flight, freeze. So you got to figure out, how do you calm that down. Safety is the answer to that, to calm the brain and open those doors for learning and problem solving. Do they need to move to get to get something out of them? Do they have too much energy, and do they need to move around so that they can calm the body and then calm the brain? Maybe they need to do that. Maybe they've got, and because now with this pandemic, it's been difficult to kind of even regulate ourselves. We really needed to put in a routines in place. So that's one of the suggestions. However, we'll talk about that. So adult behavior that hinders, child's or students' problems: yelling, chaos, lack of limits, too much structure. You know, I mean, it's been very difficult to kind of balance, I think, ourselves during this time, and for our children to even have any kind of balance going on. It's been very difficult to manage those things. So, my suggestion for most people was to develop a routine, try to maintain a routine, even though everything has changed. Develop a basic routine. Um, so that's not too much structure, but you don't want to. So sometimes we err on trying to provide too much structure when we don't know what to do. So I've also seen a lot of people kind of, have too much structure in their, lives right now, or struggling because there's not enough. Reacting to the student or the child emotionally. So basically, if we react emotionally, as you see in this picture, they check out. That survival brain pops out, and they go into fight, flight, or freeze. That child, that looks to me like an example of, flight or freeze. I am not listening to this, and unfortunately, even though that's what we hope to get a reaction out of them, it's really not working with their brains. So they're not really hearing any message that we want to teach them at that time. So we've all experienced this chaos. Now back up to that, chaos has been our lives a little bit since the pandemic, and that's why also a lack of limits has been, is difficult. So we got to have a little routine to try and help with that. And those all help, not just because of the pandemic. These are all difficult, challenging behaviors just in normal life, much less to have what we're dealing with. So, what helps? a calm response to what is expected. Having a model that you can react to them with, something where you take a couple of deep breaths before you respond to them. A calm response model will allow them to actually feel safe, will calm that survival brain down, the one that goes into fight, flight, freeze, because it creates, you see, safety first, safety in the environment, safety in the relationship, and then safety with them and yourself. So I'm going to teach you a couple of things about that because I have a good story about why that's important. But a calm response model. I know that one story when I was a young mother, and I had my young son. He was a toddler, 2 years old, and I felt like I was overreacting myself to things. And a 2-year old is getting into everything. I mean, everything. And so, what do? We jump up. We're like, oh, no, 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 and trying to do that. So, I had to start counting to 10 just before I would react because I didn't want him to see me always feeling angry or tense with him, because my face was all looking crazy, So I had to start counting to 10, and it was very successful because then I had a minute to think about how I wanted to respond as opposed to reacting. So we do have to work at trying to create safety in the environment, safety first in the environment, in the relationship, and in ourselves. Safety in the environment. Okay, so calm. This is an example of a calm classroom, but it can be like that anywhere. I know that clutter, things being in their spaces and in their places creates peaceful spaces. So if you can, reduce clutter. I don't know. I haven't had time to catch my tail during the pandemic, but I know a lot of people have been cleaning up their houses, cleaning out their garages, reducing the clutter. I love it when I can see that others are doing that. I just haven't had a minute to do it myself. But calm and peaceful spaces absolutely help. When you come into Peachtree Center for Wellness, you see I am appealing to their senses. I want it to be a calm and peaceful space. So I have pictures up that look pretty. I want you to see something serene. Plants are all around. You can see that. It doesn't look like a clinical setting. It looks like spa-ish kind of thing. I want you to feel safe and comfortable when you come in the door. So people do, and actually they tell me they do when they come in. And I appeal to the senses with the eyes, making it calm and peaceful with the eyes. Also with the nose, your senses are the nose is the strongest sense that you have. So if you can have oils diffusing, something calming to smell like aromatherapy kind of things, I have that going on at Peachtree. So you want to end music, or I have a fountain so you hear the sound of the water that's peaceful. So appealing calm and peaceful spaces appeal to the senses. Transition rituals. Okay, so this is what we've all had a hard time dealing with because we didn't have a ritual to transition to a pandemic. I mean, that was never in place. But you know how transition rituals actually really work, and it's creating that moment where you're leaving one activity and going to another activity. So being able to have these rituals, like, oh, we take 3 deep breaths, or we clap 3 times, or we do something. Music is awesome to use in rituals too. If you even have like a little hum thing that you hum, anything like that to help that movement from one activity to another. Okay, so we all know. I just thought of an excellent idea about video games. How many kids are stuck on the games, and then it's a fight every time to get them off the game and to the dinner table. I even use that actually in an example. So it's a fight to get them to the dinner table or to eat or to do anything to stop what they are doing. So if you create a ritual that okay, I'm going to give you a 5 minute warning. You're going to get a 5 minute warning that you're going to be putting this up and we're getting ready to do something. So 5 minute warning. You're going to get a 2 minute warning, and then when it's time, you're going to do something like um, you're going to have some physical thing that you could do, like okay, it's time. Something that you can, or a bell, a chime. All right, it's time to put it up and now move forward. That's what they've done in schools for years. You remember the school bells. That's how you knew to change from one class to the next. It's the same kind of thing, but you're teaching the child a ritual that they will then follow more likely because you've prepared them for it. You're getting them ready for it. They have that 5 minute transition to get their brains ready, and then you've also got some physical things to do to move it along. And if you can do that and follow that regularly, you'll find that the conflict decreases. So working on that, daily checking in with not just the student but your child. How are you feeling today? Having ways to do that. There are many ways that we can do that, and I'll show you those. But really, having, even if it's a special kind of a check-in, like you rub their head, or knock them on the shoulder and say what's going on, or you have a fist bump, or you have a way of doing that check-in with them. They know, oh, this is our special second together, our special 30 seconds of you asking me what's going on and what I think. So rituals and routines, I kind of been talking about that, the same thing. Consistent limit setting methods, always using the same thing over and over, it really does help. It's not that a lot of people will, excuse me, say that, oh, I tried that and it doesn't work. But the reality of it is, if you are consistent, children will meet you at that level. So if you can consistently respond to them in the same way, and I'm going to give you a couple of ways of doing it. So that way you're setting the limits in the same way over and over, they eventually respond to that. Okay, so that is an example of a feelings check-in, what we were just talking about. Now that's a classroom example, but I know that we're also, this is parents and grandparents. So finding another way to do that same feelings check-in, I just gave you an example that would be, one that you could physically do, like how you doing? Just that means so much to a child because in reality, they have schedules they have to follow. Everything they have to do is really kind of not really so much their control, but it's what meeting everybody's expectations. So a lot of it's not in their control. So this is a moment that they can actually have control of the moment to express themselves. So catch them doing something kind. Please catch them doing something kind and point that out because that's so difficult. They often don't feel like people see, and they often they don't feel that people see the good things that they do because they often get always told what they're doing wrong. And I understand that because you want to get everything right, or you want to get help them to get things right, and so you're trying to teach them. However, what happens is their lizard comes out because they get emotionally reacting, and so work to catch them in doing things that they do well, or that you can see that is kind to another person, something that you would want to see more of. And that's all. Here's a good okay, so labeled praise. Now, I'm going to go back to this one because I want to talk about a way to get more of what you want to see. If you want to see them being kinder, or if you want to see them doing something that more of, like if you want them to respond to you better, if you could catch them when they do it and you give them labeled praise is so powerful. It says, instead of good job, you're saying good job following my directions. And when you do that, they know what you really like. And honestly, they really just want to please us. So if you can label what it is you like with a compliment about it, you will see they will want to do more of it. So please do more of that. And let's see, creating safety with the relationship. Remember, we were talking about how important that is. So this is one of these are the ways that you can do that. I'm here. Being present in the moment to look at the child and see the emotion behind their behavior. Being present in the moment. You know, really looking, okay, so is this child are looking at them and trying to see, are you in executive functioning? Are you going to be able to hear what I'm saying, or do I need to listen to you? And then I hear you. Allow them to express their thoughts and feelings and reflect back to them. Oh, you sound really upset. You sound like that. That sounds like that really hurt your feelings. So be able to reflect that back and validate. I understand. Now, the important thing to understand, let's just say there was an altercation in the hallway. Let's just talk about, okay, we are going to talk about, remember those aces that we talked about? So let's say we've got a little boy and he has come home from school. He's been waiting all day to show his grandma his really good how he did on his math. He got an A. He hits the door, and grandma's getting texts and stuff from somebody. Uh-oh. It might be even one of his parents. I don't know. But they've got her upset, and he's upset, and he's so hungry, and she was making something to eat, but now I don't know. She's not going to be able to get it done. And uh-oh, here comes trouble through the door. This is who was texting her. And oh my goodness, there's a big fight. He's got to go to the bedroom to avoid everything. And then he goes to sleep. He falls asleep. His head's under the pillow. He falls asleep. And the next morning, everybody's getting up late because there's been fighting all night long and nobody gets breakfast. He gets to school late, so he's missed breakfast and he's now tardy. He's in the hallway, and there is that kid that looked at him wrong the other day, and he just happened to brush past him. So you know what he does? He turns around and he kicks him. So where does he end up? He ends up in the principal's office, or in the vice principal or assistant principal's office. He ends up in trouble. And we're thinking, what's the matter with you? In his mind, he says, that kid shoved me. And you know what? That kid may not have shoved him, but remember perception. Remember, we were talking about how a child, so he's been through some rough stuff all night, all morning. He's getting to school. That kid may have just brushed past him and he may not have shoved him. So the teacher that saw everything that happened says, no, that kid didn't shove him. So at this point, we have to say to this child, I understand why you might be mad at him. You know, no, you don't have to tell him. You don't have to say he did not shove you, but you can certainly understand. I understand why you might think he did. I understand why you perceive that he did. Not because it was that child's fault at all. Had nothing to do with that other child. Had everything to do with what he went through before he ever got there. And he was already in survival mode, And because he was in survival mode, he he met the child and ended up meeting him in the fight. So we have to see what we are seeing and being able to understand what we are seeing may not be exactly as everybody reports it, but it may be their perception. So I understand that you were upset. So that's how this would go. Okay, I can see you're really upset at how what happened with that. And I know he has been dogging you, and I know that things were not right. So I understand why you would feel that way. And I can see you're really mad. I can see why you'd be mad. But then you help him go to safety. All right. So it looks like what you need is to calm down a little bit before we can do anything. So why don't we do this over here? And that shows the I care part. The I care, helping the student to find a place of safety because he's threatened. That's really what's going on. And he perceives everything after that threat as a threat. So helping them to get to safety. So this is how I'm here. I hear you. I understand and I care. Those are ways to get to that child and create safety in that relationship. So this is this is an example of me when I did not do that. I wanted to show you. Okay, so we were in the playroom and my curtain rod kept falling, and the child was not did not want that curtain rod. She wanted to feel safe. She felt like if the window was open that she didn't feel safe, so I kept trying to push the curtain rod up. So finally, after 5 times, because it kept falling down, I just said, okay, after this time, if it doesn't work, we're going to have to go through with our play therapy session. And so I learned a lot about myself that day, because what we also do after therapy, after play therapy, is they have a moment where they can do some processing of what's going on. So they often draw after that to kind of like process it, and we work on cognitively how do we use what we learned. And so she drew a picture that was good for me to learn from. As you notice at the top, it says Katrina is very good at dealing with her stress, but when she doesn't, she looks like this. Okay, so I'm a trained professional. I think I'm putting on a smile on my face. But look at that picture. Look at my mouth, the eyes, and boy, she got my forehead right. That is exactly how I looked when I get upset. And that is the truth. But over here, she knows what normal Katrina looks like. I didn't have the moment. I didn't take the time to take my 3 deep breaths in order for me to be safe and regulated. So thankfully, she was able to show me, hey, this is what it looks like when you're not regulated. So we have to be able to be safe to act. Self regulation. A dysregulated adult will never regulate a dysregulated child. Never. So if you're yelling at them, they're going to yell right back. You got to have yourself regulated. And that was an example. Now, I was not yelling at her, but she saw what I felt on the inside, and I needed to be regulated. So I needed to take 3 deep breaths. Attitude. Check your attitude. Is it appropriate, emotional, or angry? She saw my attitude was upset because my environment was not right. Excuse me. Facial expression. Is my expression congruent with it regulation? She did not see. My face was not regulated. My face looked pretty upset, which was telling her everything about how I felt on the inside. And then examine expectations and empathy. So you got to look at, are they out of the survival brain, or are they, able to hear what I'm saying? So we've got to help them to calm down. So we got to look at the expectations. We may need to do a little empathy to get them to calm down first in order to be able to give them this limit setting. Acknowledge the child's feelings or wishes. And once you're really mad because you don't want to stop playing that game, communicate the limit. For example, we have we have game time and we have dinner time. Right now it's dinner time, and then target an acceptable alternative. For example, if you are upset, you can take some deep breaths, big deep breaths, or we can do an activity to calm down. Then we can go and do what we are supposed to do, which is dinner time. And then you can also remind them after that, you can have time for, whatever it is you want them to do next. Realistic strategies for individuals and students and groups. Safety first, enter them into a quiet, calming, safe space. Co-regulation. So help them. If they're upset, you help them. You stand there and look at them and say, okay, let's breathe deep together. 3 deep breaths. Mindful activity. Give them an activity. If you're upset, show me what it's like. Go draw it um, on that paper over there. Or like Inner Explorer or some other things you can do. There are all kinds of programs that you can get them involved in as well. If you want to use something that is electronic, they can do all drawing that way. Allow them to express their emotions and feelings. Opportunity and ways to express, give them opportunity and ways to express themselves. Respond and validate their feelings. Create and follow a ritual to get them going or out of it. So, grounding activities, these are a couple of things that you can do. These are sensible sacks, you can create by getting one thing for each of these senses. And they get them and they use them and take a deep breath. They touch something and take a deep breath. Taste something and take a deep breath. Look at something and take a deep breath. So there's something for each one of their senses in there. Go Noodle is something else that you can do, and that's a way to get rid of their bodily energy if they need to get rid of their body energy before they can calm down. And then take a break box, having things that are sensory that they can feel. So those are all things that, um, well, my little question and answer isn't there. So what I'm gonna do to kind of help us out, I'm going to go back to the beginning slide just so you know who you're talking to right there. And if you can, we have questions and answers available um, for you to chat. You can get on the chat box, and Tony is there. He can he can offer some questions to me, but also I will give Tony, because I see that my email address that was supposed to be there is not there. I will make it available by the end of the next presentation, but I will tell it to you right now. It is TLC, short for Tender Loving Care, TLC, the number 4, and the word change at gmail.com. And so it's TLC at gmail.com. So if you have any other questions that I can't answer, please email me and we'll make sure that information is available to you also outside of this presentation because it's being recorded. So, Tony, you got any questions for me? Let's see. I'm going to go to
I actually have
top.
one question
Okay.
for you. The question was, and you answered a little bit of this, I think, but just to further go into it, he says, "Here's my struggle. I have several foster kids slash students, and behavior when doing projects is hard to handle sometimes. Any suggestions on how to redirect or defuse the situation?"
Yes, that's very commonly asked about. Okay, so, and what I hear often is once one child starts kind of acting out or reacting, then you've got all of them. And so, one suggestion is number one, trying to recognize when that one child may be getting dysregulated, because the truth of the matter is, very frequently, they are more sensitive, but the others are probably on their way to dysregulation as well. So frequently, if you just watch that one and then stop and do something physical with them, such as, have a routine for, like, okay, we need to take a break now. And honestly, that is good for all of them, to take a break and get them distracted doing something with their bodies, such as, maybe you have a song that you could actually put some actions to, or something along those lines, or even taking a break to breathe with them, and say, okay, it's time for us to take a break. And I would definitely suggest watching Elmo Belly Breathe on YouTube. It is fantastic for young ones. Actually, everybody enjoys it, but it's starting them thinking about belly breathing and that kind of thing. So you may want to take that moment to start a ritual with them. Okay, let's all belly breathe, and actually kind of work with them to, let's see how to put it. Um, for the other children to kind of peer regulate the ones that are having difficulty. So working together in that way. But also, if you have to, I know that it is difficult, but attending to that one child, even for a moment, I don't know if you have the ability to do that, and kind of regulate them, that could be helpful. So then, it's not everybody kind of following in line. Okay.
Okay, great, Katrina. Thank you. And that looks like all the questions we have on here. So I'm sure people wrote your email down. And again, if you can get that information to me, I can post it on our parent webpage as well.
How can I get that to you easily?
You can email it to me, and
All
then I
right.
can post that up on our website. So that way it'll be under the parent tab under the Title One website, and they'll be able to contact you that way. Um, so
Thank you so much.
thank you. You have a great day, and thanks for all the great information. We'll be speaking now with our next presenters. They're actually going to be sharing their screen here while I'm talking, but we have Andrea Roy and Robin Looney. They are from Marshall University College of Health Professionals. Andrea is the West Virginia Time for Kids project coordinator, and Robin is the Time for Kids treatment coordinator. So they're going to be talking to you today a little bit about mindfulness activities to cope and calm, and speaking to you on those topics. So I'm going to turn it over to them as they're getting ready here. And again, if you have any questions, on the right side of the YouTube screen, you should see a chat, or you can go in and chat. You do have to be logged into YouTube, I think, to ask a question. But anybody have any questions, just post them there, and I'll be watching those. And at the end of her presentation, we'll be able to do a Q&A session like we did with Katrina Jefferson. So thank you again, Katrina. And this time we'll turn it over to Andrea and Robin.
Thank you so much, Tony, and thank you to Wayne County Schools for having us here and giving us the opportunity to share this information. And thanks to Katrina for setting the table so nicely. So as Tony said, my name is Andrea Roy, and I'm the project coordinator for a program called Trauma-Informed Mindfulness Engagement for Kids. My co-presenter, Robin Looney, is the project treatment coordinator, and we're very pleased to be here to speak with you about ways that you and your family can stay a little more calm during this stressful time we're all in. Just to give you a brief overview of what we'll be talking about, I do want to describe the Time for K program briefly, just to give you some context about who we are and how we've been connected with Wayne County Schools and will continue to be. We'll talk about what is mindfulness, but we really want to spend the majority of the time going over exercises and activities that you can do at home. Ways that you can calm yourselves, things you can do with your kids to help them also develop their own self-regulation skills and be a little calmer in this time. And some of them are just plain fun and good exercises to do together. So, Time for K. Time for K is meant to provide resources and support to children who've been affected by the substance use disorder epidemic that our region is experiencing. Our program is funded by a 3-year grant from the Department of Justice and the Office for Victims of Crime. We're currently in year 2, and unfortunately, we've been curtailed as schools have been out, and we are working to try to keep in touch with the students that we've been working with. But we will be back for a 3rd year, and we're working to make the program sustainable so that we can continue to serve students for many years to come. We're currently in 8 elementary schools, 4 in Cabell County, and then in Wayne County, we are in Kellogg, Sarita Canova, Lavalette, and Wayne elementary schools. Wayne and Sarita Canova, we are completing our 2nd year, and we had just rolled out the program in Kellogg and Lavalette this past semester. The program, the school-based components of the program are basically Lawyer in the School, which I hope some of you have heard of. Lawyer in the School is a great program from Legal Aid of West Virginia that provides free civil legal assistance to families who need it. It's a great tool to help families stabilize. And even though our Lawyer in the School has been conducting clinics at Wayne Elementary, I know that the county has made that service available to every family who has a child in Wayne County schools, which we're grateful for. And they are continuing to operate even though school isn't in session. So if you do have a need, please contact me. My contact information is at the end, and I'd be happy to pass your information along to our Lawyer in the School, or to send that information out to you. We also provide teacher training to all the schools that we are in, provided by Katrina. Actually, we've been working with her for a while. So all that great information that you just heard, we have also provided to the schools that we're in, plus a lot more and additional resources for schools. And then we have trained MSW students who provide one-on-one mindfulness coaching to children who've been referred to the program. And they also conduct classroom activities by request. This is really the direct service component. We have students who are in the schools for about 20 hours a week. Students who are referred to the program do have to have had some experience with substance use disorder, whether that means that they're in foster care or in the care of a grandparent, or that they've just been affected by some way. But we do like to offer classroom activities so that all students can benefit from the mindfulness practices. So I'm not going to talk much more about the program. If it is something that you would be interested in, if you have a child in one of the eligible schools or know a child who might be a good referral, as I said, mine and Robin's contact will be at the end of the presentation. Please do reach out to us. We're excited to be partnering with Wayne County Schools for this. And because hopefully by now because we are doing mindfulness programming in the schools, this is why we're talking about these techniques that we're going to teach you now are techniques that our social work students do use with the students that they're working with to help calm that fight, flight, and freeze reaction that Katrina talked about, and help them build their own skills for emotional regulation. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Robin.
Hi everyone, I am Robin, and I want to talk to you for a couple minutes about mindfulness. Mindfulness means being here right now, being in the world and not just on it. If you've ever taken a drive in your car and your mind was so full that when you arrived at your destination, you might have realized you didn't notice anything along the way. Mindfulness helps us to be present in the moment so that life doesn't just pass us by. Mindfulness is universal. Everyone has the ability to practice mindfulness, and we do get better with practice. It's secular, it's not affiliated with any particular religious belief, and there's definitely a growing body of scientific research that demonstrates the benefits of mindfulness, such as stress reduction, improved concentration, better managing of emotions, and improved relationships. And I think most of the time when we think of mindfulness practices, we think of meditation, guided imagery, breathing techniques, and movement like Tai Chi or yoga, and that's definitely true. But the reality is almost anything can be a mindfulness practice. It might be taking a walk and noticing the smells and what you see and what you hear, really being present in the moment. It might be as something as simple as chopping vegetables for dinner. It might be eating those vegetables at dinner. It might be cleaning up toys. And you could even play a mindful game such as, let's pick up blue toys first or soft toys next. And finally, a mindfulness practice might be just petting our pets. I once had a fluffy white dog named Lucky, and when I would come home from work, he'd lay on the couch for me, and I'd pet him, and that was an extremely comforting and relaxing mindful practice. And I bet many of you can identify with that.
So the first group of activities that we're going to talk about are ways that we can use one or more of our five senses as a way to connect to the present moment. Unlike our thoughts, which tend to race around between the past and the future, our senses only know the present moment, and paying attention to the constant information that they're registering and observing that is one of the most immediate ways that we can access that present moment awareness. Katrina touched on this some with her sensory sacks idea, which is great. We've used it with the kids in our program as well. It's a very effective way to gather up items that have this appeal and can help ground you in the present moment when you're, either lost in your thoughts or becoming upset. The idea of using the senses as a way to build awareness is an easy concept for most children to grasp. If not something that they can articulate, it's something they can definitely experience. And most sensory exercises have the added benefit of being pretty fun to do. So I hope you agree. The first thing that we're going to talk about is the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 exercise. This is something that can be done quickly, to calm down, or it can be done in a kind of longer, more meditative way. So to quickly connect with all your senses, you want to scan your surroundings and kind of take an internal inventory of your body to list 5 things that you can see. You can look around and bring your attention to things that maybe you wouldn't even normally notice, like a shadow or a small crack in the wall. 4 things that you can feel. Like your shirt resting on your skin, or if you're seated, maybe where you're connected to your seat, the air or the sun on your skin. 3 things that you can hear. 2 things that you can smell. And then 1 thing that you can taste, maybe your toothpaste or a meal that you had earlier. And by the time you get through this list, I guarantee you, whether you've done it quickly or done it slowly, you will be right in the present moment. This exercise, I've talked with school counselors who have this posted on their walls and they use it as a quick exercise. And I've talked with friends of mine who are in therapy, whose therapists use some version of this. So this is age appropriate across the board. And it's really just an easy way, something that you can do anywhere you are whenever you start to kind of lose track of yourself or get swept up in thoughts or emotions, that you can ground down and connect with the present moment. Taking a mindful walk. Robin mentioned that as one of our kind of everyday mindfulness activities. We walk around all the time, but how often do we really pay attention? And right now, I'm looking out the window. It is a gorgeous day. It looks like a great day to be outside. As the weather is turning, it's a good opportunity to get outside. Getting outside is one of those things we still can do as long as we maintain proper social distance. And the spring is so beautiful with the flowers and the budded trees just bursting out. So getting outside to appreciate that can be a very mindful activity. And you can approach your mindful walk in a couple of different ways. You can take a walk and maybe just focus internally and really pay attention to what sensations happen in your body as you're moving it through space, whether that is thinking about what your feet feel like in your shoes and noticing that, what it feels like as your feet touch the ground, the movement in your hips, what it feels like as you shift your weight back and forth, paying attention to all of those sensations. Or you can draw your attention to be more external and maybe do some version of the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 exercise that we just did, looking around to appreciate and list the things that you can see, the things that you can feel, the things that you can hear. So both of those ways are, ways just to bring a little extra awareness to something that we do every day that can use as a way to appreciate the present moment. And then sound. Sound is a really powerful thing. Definitely there are sounds. I'm sure we all have sounds that just set our teeth on edge. And certainly we can use sound to focus our attention just by, noticing any sounds that are around us. But there are some other sounds that you can draw into that. We like the sound of bells or chimes. We have quite a number of chimes around the time for K office, and they're really nice ways to kind of get attention without, without introducing an irritating sound. But they can also be a great way to focus your attention. And the bells and the chimes that we have a long ring to them. So one activity that you could do, whether you have a bell in your home or whether you have access to download an app, there are several meditation apps that have some great bell sounds. One I like is Insight Timer. They offer a great variety of sounds at no cost. And you can listen to the sound together and listen to it intently until it fades away into silence, and notice, as things ring, they have all these different overtones. So really paying attention to that and using that to focus your awareness. So through our presentation, we want to do a few demonstrations with you to model how you can use some of these activities at home, and also hopefully to relieve a little bit of stress you might be feeling right now. And so that you can, get some experience of mindfulness and why it might be a great activity and concept to introduce into your home. So I have my singing bowl with me, and I'm going to ring it 3 times. After I ring it, hopefully this will come across the computer audio. You should be able to hear it ring for quite some time after that initial strike. So if you could concentrate on that sound until it fades into silence, and I will do that 3 times each time. Just focus on the sound, and maybe focus on your breathing a little bit as well. If you could just make sure that you're getting in some good deep breaths as we do this. Let's all take one breath together. Breathe in. Now exhale. So as I said, I'm not sure how the audio came over the computer, but hopefully that gave you some idea of how sound can be used to focus and ground you and bring you into the present moment.
Thank you, Andrea. The chime was actually very nice. I'm going to talk with you a little bit about sensory bins. And these are actually some of my favorite activities. I think they're very effective with young people and actually helpful to older people as well. You'll need a large plastic bin, something you can just buy at the dollar store. And you can fill it with ingredients like dry pasta, different shapes, dry beans, uncooked rice, maybe sand, anything that young people can plunge their hands into when they need to focus, reconnect, possibly calm down. Some other great fillers might be water beads. You can get these at large department stores or order them online. moon dough, which can be made with flour and oil. We're going to offer some of these resources at the end of the presentation, so be looking for them. I am also going to show you these resources when I finish talking about the different activities. Another activity is a stress ball. It's a very helpful tool when someone is anxious, worried, fidgety, or restless. Simply take a balloon, a funnel, and the filler of your choice. It might be flour, cornstarch, rice, or sand. And finally, calming bottles. Calming bottles are a great way to take a break, focus on the contents of the bottle, which serve as an anchor, slow down and manage emotions. The child simply shakes the bottle and watches as the contents settle. You can make these with a bottle, clear glue, glitter, and other small craft items. Let's talk now about mindful eating before I move on and show you those items. In order to practice mindful eating, you might take a small piece of chocolate or other kind of candy and simply hold it in your mouth without chewing. Let it melt. Notice the texture. Notice the taste. What does it feel like in your mouth? You can try this with other foods as well. I think oftentimes we get so busy and we find ourselves picking up food at the drive-thru or even eating in the car. My family's certainly done that a lot. But it can be good to practice, whether we're seated in the car or seated together at the dinner table, to slow down and be mindful about our eating. Okay, I'm going to show you a few of these items. And I hope that you can see them. First of all, let me show you just an idea of what a bin would be needed for your sensory activity. That way everything stays down inside and doesn't get tossed about the room. Here's the pasta. I'm going to move this a little bit so that you can view it. Notice that we have bow tie pasta, and within the pasta are actually butterflies. This is a very fun visual activity for youth to look for the different items hidden within the pasta. Again, your imagination is the limit. You can use different shapes, different colors, put different items within that. It's really fun for young people. Let me show you the next one. These are simply chickpeas. Imagine a lot of these in a big, deep bin. Instructions about how to dye them, again, are offered at the end of the presentation. Kids love to dig around in the chickpeas. But maybe their favorite, or at least my favorite, are water beads. Orbeez is one brand of water bead. If you'll notice, we have sea creatures hidden in our water beads. These are really, really fun, especially in a deep bin. I hope you can see them well because they're really neat. Okay, let me tilt the screen a little bit and I'm going to show you our stress ball. Simply a balloon, and this one's filled with sand, I think. Very, very calming if a child's fidgety or rather tense and upset. Here's the moon dough. There are instructions how to make this at the end. 8 cups of flour will make a lot of moon dough. You'll definitely want a bin to put it in. It's extremely soft and comforting. And finally, here is our calming bottle. This has such a soothing effect. And I would suggest trying it for your family, make them in different colors. I think everybody would want one. Thanks so much. Hope that was helpful.
Thank you so much, Robin, for all that great show and tell. We're going to move on now to breathing exercises. Breathing exercises, there are a bunch of them, but really deep belly breathing is a great cornerstone technique. It can be done anywhere. It doesn't cost you anything. We always have our breath with us. Deep breathing helps us in many, many ways. Of course, it sends more oxygen to our brain, which is good. But when we're feeling nervous or anxious, by breathing deeply, we trigger that parasympathetic nervous system. And that helps us slow down our heart rate and also reduce our blood pressure. So there are real scientifically proven and medical benefits to just stopping when we're feeling overwhelmed or anxious and taking some deep, deep breaths. So this is another place where we're going to pause and actually do a little bit of this, because this is, deep belly breathing is really something that can be combined with almost anything else that we're going to talk about today to make it more effective. And it's just a great exercise on its own. So often, if you look at babies, you can tell they kind of expand all through their middle when they're breathing. But as we become adults, we tend to, either because of bad posture or just not thinking about it, we tend really to draw more shallow breaths just into our lungs and not really fully inflate our diaphragm and get all the benefits of breathing. So I can't see you. I just have to trust that you're going to do this. I assume most of you are seated, so please, wherever you're seated, put both of your feet flat on the floor and really feel that connection where you meet your seat. And sit up straight. Make sure your sitting bones are connected to your surface and sit up straight through your spine. Let's take our shoulders and put them up to our ears and then kind of roll them back and slide them down our backs so that our chest is nice and open and broad. We're going to take 3 deep belly breaths together. So put your hands, we call them belly breaths, but really, of course, it's your diaphragm located right under your lungs. Put your hands on your belly, both on either side. And as we're breathing, feel how your hands kind of move apart as you're inhaling and how your diaphragm shrinks and your hands move back together as you're breathing in. We're going to take 3 deep breaths together like this. I invite you to close your eyes. That's certainly not necessary. You can also just put your gaze in one point kind of forward and down ahead of you. So we're going to breathe in. And as we breathe in, we're going to breathe in for a count of, let's say, 3, and then we're going to exhale for a count of 4, because we want to slightly expand our exhale. That's where the real kind of heart slowing down benefit is. Make sure to be mindful of your hands on your belly, and let's breathe together. Let's inhale, 1, 2, 3, and exhale, 1, 2, 3, 4. One more like that. Let's inhale, 1, 2, 3. Exhale, 1, 2, 3, 4. As you inhale this time, see if you can feel your back inflate a little bit too. 1, 2, 3. And then exhale, 1, 2, 3, 4. So 3 deep breaths really is enough for you to get some benefit from it. But if you have the time to do 5, that's even better. It really kind of seals in that calming effect. So deep breathing is, like I said, one of the most basic and easiest things for us to do if we just put our mindful attention to it. But there are certainly ways that you can make it more fun and engaging for kids. You can integrate props like pinwheels and bubbles. We use breathing buddies at Time for K, and that's just your child's maybe favorite stuffed animal. Have your child lie down and put their stuffed animal on their belly, and then they can take their stuffed animal for a ride as they breathe up and down. And it just gives all of these props just give an additional sensory component. It lets children really see the effects of their breathing, which can reinforce that skill, but then also just make it more fun and more appealing. And then lastly, Katrina mentioned the Elmo belly breathing video. It is a great video. There's a link for it here at the end of the presentation, so you can access that. It's a really catchy little song and just appeals to a lot of different people. So as I said, that kind of deep belly breath, that's kind of our home base. There are lots of exercises that we can use to incorporate that. One of my favorites is an exercise called the 4-finger mantra. And this is something that you can do for yourself, or you can work with your child to help them incorporate it as well. And essentially, what you want to do is to spend some time coming up with a 4-word phrase that describes something you aspire to, that encapsulates kind of the best you that you can be. So, maybe your child has some problems, with anxiety. And what they aspire to is to be able to calm themselves. So using the phrase, I can calm down, that's their mantra. You might have to work with your child to develop their mantra. It might be hard for them to kind of get their head around it, but even if you do help them with it, you want to make sure that it's something that's really personally meaningful for them and something that that they really have as a goal for themselves and not just a goal that we might have for them. So once you've developed your 4-word phrase, which can take a little bit of time, you want to say your phrase aloud. And as you say it, you want to count each of the words on your fingers. And then after you finish the phrase, then you want to take 1 deep belly breath in and slowly let it out. And you want to repeat this whole process 3 times. And one of the things that I really love about this exercise is that it uses so many different sensory inputs. Between articulating the mantra, when you're speaking it aloud, then you also hear it, using your fine motor skills by ticking off on your fingers. All of these things combine to create a connection in our brain that you can strengthen with practice. And particularly, using the phrase again, I can calm down. If you can come up with a time when you were able to calm yourself, or even just think about what that feels inside your body when you are calm. If you can bring that feeling in and sort of imagine that phrase working to help you bring that feeling at the same time, you're also sort of combining that with emotional memory. And all those things really work together to make this an effective practice if you do it regularly. It can help us create new habits by combining all these different sensory inputs. It's the way our brain learns things best. We actually use this quite a bit with children that are seen individually in the Time for K program. And one child in particular who had a really hard time keeping his hands to himself developed his own mantra that he was able to use. And speaking with his teacher, not only did she say that it did make a difference for him, and she would see him sometimes in class counting off on his fingers, whenever he was having impulses to be disruptive. A new child actually transferred into their class, and this child was really upset and was crying, and this little boy showed him the 4-finger mantra as well. So I love that story because, it's an intervention that just shows it's an intervention that was meaningful to this child. It was so meaningful to him that he went ahead and shared that so that it could make a difference for somebody else. So I think that's a great, effective exercise. Give me 5 breathing. This is a fun activity, and kind of gives us an opportunity to combine physical movement again with our breathing. So give me 5 breathing just entails opening one of your hands, and you can put it in front of you, or you could put it on the table if you'd rather do that, and extend your pointer finger on your other hand. And then you slowly trace the fingers of your open hand, concentrating on coordinating your deep breathing with your movement, so that as you trace upward on your thumb, you're inhaling. And then as you're tracing downward, you're exhaling. And then again, when you're in that kind of little valley between your thumb and your index finger, you start your inhale. And then as you are tracing up around the top of your index finger and on the downward spiral, you start your exhale. Coordinating your movement and your breath is a really, it's an effective way to focus your concentration. And as you're doing that, you can also, or your child can also focus on the sensations as in their hand as they're moving through that exercise. So if you trace your hand once, give me 5. It should have a pretty calming effect, but if you want, you can also then, once you have already traced your pinky, reverse that and then go inhaling as you go up your pinky and then around and down all the way to your thumb again. And by the time you've done that, you'll probably be quite a bit calmer. And then bunny breathing. I really like this exercise because while so many of the breathing exercises that we talked about are meant to produce calm, this one can help us feel more alert. I don't know about you all, but in this shelter at home situation, I have been feeling unusually sluggish, getting plenty of sleep, but still feeling kind of draggy through the day. And this is a great way to integrate something in that can help you be more alert and focused and refreshed. So to bunny breathe, you want to find a comfortable seat, or you could be standing, and then you want to lower your chin toward your chest. Again, you want to make sure that your shoulders are nice and broad so that you can get a good breath in. And we're going to take 3 big sniffs in right in a row, and then 1 long exhale right after that. We'll exhale in 1 long release. So it sounds something like this. And I should mention that as you're inhaling, even though these are quick, sharp breaths, you still want to make sure that they're inflating your diaphragm. So you want to kind of push beyond, inflating your chest and make sure that those quick breaths are getting into your belly. So it sounds something like this. Quick exercise, you do 5 to 7 rounds of that, and you will be feeling more alert and clear-headed. So as we segue to talk about meditation, breathing exercises and meditation are closely related because really one of the cornerstone meditation practices is sitting still and focusing your awareness on your breath. It sounds like a really simple practice, and it is easy in the sense that we have all the equipment to do it with us all the time, but it is super challenging to concentrate on your breath for any amount of time. It's just not what we're used to doing as humans. Our minds are used to wandering, but the practice is to gently direct our attention back to our breath again and again. Not getting upset with ourselves, not having a thought enter, because thoughts are going to enter. It's just human nature. But if I'm sitting and trying to focus on my breath and I have the thought like, oh, what am I going to have for dinner? Just labeling that as thinking and then gently letting it go and redirecting my focus back on the breathing rather than being like, what am I going to have for dinner? I got to go to the store. Are we going to have we can watch our thoughts and we can let them go. We don't have to be hijacked by every one that pops into our head. So in addition to letting our thoughts go, we also try to let judgment of ourselves go because it is a challenging practice. It is, and it's very counter to the way that most of our lives are. We always have so much input, so many, so many things to do. I know that this has been a time to kind of where people have found the opportunity to slow down, but it's also been a time of a lot of anxiety, and it's kind of easy to get hijacked by all of that. So by not judging ourselves, by just being really light with ourselves and directing our attention back to our breath again and again, we can develop that mindfulness and also some self-compassion. And I think Robin is going to talk about some other meditative practices.
Yes, guided visualization. You can find a lot of resources online which will guide you through a journey with relaxing music, take you to a peaceful place. But you can actually do this on your own. Pick out some of your favorite relaxing music and think of special places for you. Maybe it's the beach or the lake near your home. Maybe it's a sunny pasture. It really can be anywhere that you choose. But stopping and focusing on that kind of setting may help you with your meditation and grounding. I wanted to take you through a body scan now, and this will only take probably 3 minutes, but I'd urge you to get comfortable, create your space around you, and I'll take you through it just a little bit at a time. Start by bringing attention to your body. You can close your eyes if you're comfortable with that. Notice your body seated wherever you are, whether it's on a chair, on the floor, on a couch. Feel the weight of your body. Take a few deep breaths in through your nose and out through your mouth. As you take a deep breath, notice the oxygen bringing your body alive. As you exhale, have a sense of relaxing more deeply. Continue to breathe in through your nose and slowly out through your mouth. Notice your feet on the floor. Notice the sensations of your feet touching the floor. The weight and the pressure, the warmth, any vibration. Notice your legs. Feel any pressure, any pulsing, any heaviness or lightness. Now notice your back. Pressing against whatever is behind you. Bring your attention into the stomach area. If your stomach is tense or tight, let it soften. Relax. Take a breath. Notice your hands. Are your hands tense or tight? See if you can allow them to soften and relax. Notice your arms. Feel any sensation in your arms. Let your shoulders relax and be soft. Now notice your neck and your throat. Let them relax. Move up to your jaw. Soften your jaw. Let your face and your facial muscles relax. Then notice your whole body present. Take one more breath. Be aware of your whole body as best you can. Take another breath. And then, when you're ready, you can open your eyes. Okay, I hope that was helpful and that gives you an idea of how a body scan works. This is something you can certainly do on your own anytime you feel that it would be helpful. Another way to practice meditation is to utilize gratitude. Right now, we're in a very challenging time. Things are strange, they're upside down. We're out of our usual routines. It can be really stressful and worrisome. But by thinking of gratitude, those things, people, experiences that are special to us, we can begin to have a different outlook. One way to practice gratitude is a gratitude jar. Simply take a jar or a basket or a box, decorate it, which you could do as a family, and then take turns writing down specific things that you're grateful for. You could do that every day, throughout the day, a few times a week. But then decide, when are we going to get together, take the slips out of the jar, and talk about what we're grateful for. This can be a really powerful experience for the family, in a way to remind ourselves that even though it might be crazy out there and it's troubling, there are so many good things and good people in our life. We can also practice gratitude through a collage. Get out a big piece of paper, magazines, cut and paste items onto the paper that we're grateful for. And this is a very good visual experience. Another creative way to practice gratitude is perhaps to make a gratitude tree. You can get a branch from outside, or maybe a small twig would work better. Put construction paper on the wall, but cut out leaves. And once you've cut out your leaves or blossoms, have family members write what they're grateful for on the leaves and attach them to the tree. That can be a fun way to take a look at those positive things in our life.
The last meditation exercise that we're going to talk about is something called metta meditation, or loving kindness meditation. And loving kindness meditation is an exercise in which we consciously practice wishing for the well-being and happiness of ourselves and for others. This exercise actually has quite a bit of research behind it. First responders and mental health professionals and other people who are prone to compassion fatigue and burnout have been studied practicing this, and it has been shown to really enhance people's ability to experience empathy. And it just helps us, it's a practice that helps us recognize that no matter how different we are from each other, we all share the same basic desire, just to be happy and well in the world. So our loving kindness meditation can start by directing it toward ourselves. And we might say a simple phrase like, "May I be happy, well, and peaceful." And then we next extend those wishes to someone who it's very easy for us to love, somebody who's very dear for us, and to whom it's just very easy to extend those wishes. May they be happy, well, and peaceful. And then we might want to think about someone that we are really neutral about. And this could be somebody that we see regularly and can clearly picture, but maybe we don't have a very deep relationship with. So if there's a cashier that you see regularly in the grocery store, or maybe your mail person, we next want to extend those wishes to them. May they be happy, well, and peaceful. And then after we've been practicing for a little while, if it's comfortable, we may also want to direct those wishes to someone who we don't have the most positive feelings about. Now, this doesn't have to be like the most stressful person in your life, but just someone maybe who gets on your nerves, or who annoys you from time to time. And so, sort of drawing them into this circle, and wishing them also to be happy, well, and peaceful. And then we can end this meditation by picturing ourselves with all the people that we've drawn into the meditation, or maybe trying to picture the whole world and just wishing for everyone to be happy, well, and peaceful. Katrina mentioned too, I think in this stressful time, it's easy to be kind of snappish with people. I think that's one of our defaults when we're not feeling good about other things. We tend to maybe take it out on other people who don't have anything to do with it. And I think by cultivating this practice, and really consciously sending out our empathy and our compassion, we can overcome some of that. And, like I said, just recognize that we're all in this together, and that everybody is doing the best that they can. And that everyone is deserving of our compassion. So the last group of activities we're going to talk about is movement. Movement, I think you all are probably very well aware that movement is crucial to our physical health and our emotional health. So while we may be very familiar with the benefits of movement for physical health, like cardiovascular function and flexibility, our emotions can also really benefit from moving around. Our emotions, if you think about it, really are energy that is created by our brains. And movement can help shift and release that energy. Stress is an experience that happens to our bodies. I mean, think about it. When you're feeling stressed out, you might have butterflies in your stomach, or you might feel tension in your shoulders. So the most effective way to combat it sometimes, especially for children who might not yet have the words to talk about it, is literally to use our bodies to shake it off. So we try to give you some fun examples. I do feel like this is probably one category of movement people are most familiar with. But just some ideas you might not have thought about or have discarded are family dance routines. Some of you in your time at home may have come under the allure of TikTok. TikTok is an app that a lot of people use to do dance challenges, and particularly families have been taking up these dance challenges. And also Instagram and YouTube, you can see these if you're not on TikTok. And I think that this is a really fun suggestion. I know it probably moves a lot of people out of their comfort zone, which is kind of the point. I think it's great for our kids to have the opportunity to see us learn something new. Just to model for them, what it is to learn something new, and how, maybe you can't get that move and you get a little frustrated, and how you deal with that. Also, as I started looking into this a little bit more, there's actually quite a bit of research that supports synchronized movement as a way to improve cooperation. So doing a family dance routine may very well get your family working together as a team a little bit better than they have been in this time. So I highly recommend you try this. But if that's not your speed, you can just do a dance party. Depending on their ages, kids really just love to move. And so if you turn up the music and start shaking and dancing your thing, your kids will join in, and you can have so much fun. You may want to, as you're dancing, maybe call certain body parts, like wiggle your shoulders or wiggle your hips or wiggle your head, just to kind of help build and reinforce that body awareness. But just giving them the opportunity to blow off their steam, get out their energy, and see you doing it too can be a really fun activity to do together and really beneficial. Yoga, I feel like yoga may be the mindfulness technique that people are most familiar with, at least by name. Obviously, it's outside of the scope of this webinar to be able to lead you through anything. So I wanted to give you some resources. Karma Yoga Institute is actually located here. It's a local resource in Huntington. Jeannie Harrison, the woman who founded it, does some training for Time for K. And she has a YouTube channel in which she's done some videos with kids movement that are really fun. And then Cosmic Kids is another YouTube channel that I believe they're based in the UK, and they have a lot of different videos that kids can follow along for yoga, for other mindfulness activities. So those can be a lot of fun to check out together. But again, to bring it back to our earlier point, any physical exercise can be mindful if you bring your attention to what you're doing, and how your bodies are feeling while you're doing it. And coordinating physical movement with mindful reflection is just a really nice way to kind of enhance that mind-body connection. So as we have promised, at the end of the slide deck, we do have a lot of resources. I want to take this moment to talk about the Time for K YouTube channel. I mentioned that we are trying in this epidemic to stay in touch with the families that we've been serving in various ways. And one of the ways that we came up with was to develop our own YouTube channel. So we're still adding videos to it, but there are a few guided meditations that you could do with us. I urge you to check that out and find some exercises that you all like to do together. Several resources for making things that we talked about, the belly breathing with Elmo, and as I mentioned, the yoga and mindfulness activities for kids. This slide deck will be available, I think, on the Wayne County Schools website. Tony can tell you more about that. This is mine and Robin's contact information. Again, if you have a child or know a child who might be a great candidate for Time for K, please contact us. Or if you'd like a copy of this slide deck, you can contact either one of us, and we'd be happy to send that out to you as well. So I hope that was, I hope we tried to give you a good variety of different ideas that you could use at home. And I hope that is really helpful as you and your kids kind of weather this situation. And Tony's turned his camera on.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
good deal. I was looking at the questions here. We just actually have one that's on here, and it was asked that, let me find it here. Are you able to Zoom meetings and continue working with the students that you were working with before school ended?
That's a great question. And we're working on that because, because of the grant, and because of the university, we have something called the Institutional Review Board that has to approve all changes that we make to the program. So we're working on an amendment to, to our current plan to include Zoom sessions, because we really do want to maintain contact and think that would be a great way to do it. And we're hoping to get that in place as soon as we can.
Okay, great. Sounds good. That was all the questions that were on here. So I'll make sure that all the presenters today, that you all have your contact information on the parents portion of the Title I website for Wayne County Schools. And then I can put your slide presentations on there as well for people to view. And then this will also be recorded, has been recorded, so people can go on to the Wayne County Education YouTube site and view the video again later.
Thank you so much for having us to the Wayne Parent Academy. It was a lot of fun, and we hope it was helpful.
Thank you, guys. We really appreciate your time and your information. It was awesome, and thank you so much for that. But
Tony, I wanted to say thank you as well.
Okay, thank you, Katrina. It was awesome. The presentations were excellent, and I think it was a lot of great information. And I just want to thank everybody that were able to view today for our third annual Wayne County Parent Academy, and just once again thank our speakers for their wonderful job that they did on showing us some ways to deal and cope with the trauma of the situations in today's society, and ways to be able to leave that with some mindfulness techniques. That was awesome. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, you guys have a great day, and we will end the session. And once again, guys, if you have any questions, you can email those presenters, and I will post information on the parent website under the Title I website for Wayne County Schools. And you can view this recording on YouTube through the Wayne County Schools West Virginia page on YouTube. So thank you guys, and everyone have a great day.